All right, here's a story that well, I'll tell the story. This is a good story. This wasn't, I wrote the stories down, but this is a good story. We're coming close to the holiday of Purim. The holiday of Purim, according to Chabad, is explained a little bit differently. That Haman had a decree, he made a decree to kill all the Jews in one day. And because Haman was the de facto ruler of the world, Achashverosh told him to do whatever he wants. And Achashverosh ruled over the whole world. So there was nowhere for the Jews to run. And there was no time to kill all the Jews in one day. And the Jews were not allowed to arm themselves. That was achieved by Esther going into the king. He gave her permission that the Jews could fight back. But until the Jews didn't have a right to arm themselves or fight back. And the decree was supposed to be, he threw, like we said, we threw lots. So he threw lots in the first month in Nisan, and it came out that the Jews were supposed to be killed 12 months later in the month of Adar. So the Jews had 12 months that this decree was hanging over their heads. And even when Esther went into the king, so she got permission to, the Jews could fight back, but the Jews were outnumbered 500 to 1, who knows how many. Okay, but Jews are clever, so the Jews had a way to get out of it. What did they have to do? All they had to do, the decree was to kill all the Jews. All the Jew had to do was say 3 words, and he would be exempt from any sort of danger. I'm not Jewish. Or 4 words, I'm not a Jew. Just say, I'm not Jewish. That's all. Not Jewish. You didn't have permission to kill him. No, so that's pretty simple. So Jews are smart people, and Jews are people. You know, any normal person would say those 3 words to get out of the danger, out of death. So the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe in Chabad writes, there was not one Jew that even thought, not even children, not women, not one Jew even thought to take this way out. They all were aware of it, but not one Jew even considered utilizing this escape hatch and saying, I'm not Jewish. Not one Jew, which that's pretty insane, because they saw the non-Jews were the next door neighbors, and they were sharpening up their knives and practicing, you know, shooting arrows and throwing axes or whatever with targets. And they knew what but not one Jew did. So that, with that self-sacrifice that the Jews had, this insane self-sacrifice, and these same Jews, they were all participated in the big meal of Achashverosh, that Achashverosh was celebrating the fact that the Jews had been in exile 70 years and that they were not redeemed and that the redemption was not going to come. So the Jews, in other words, these were Jews that gave up on Judaism, basically. They gave up on Mashiach, gave up on redemption. And nevertheless, when the decree came on them, they said, no, we're Jews. We're Jews. We're willing to die. I'm not even going to say I'm not a Jew. Okay. Where does this come from? This is a craziness of the Jews, and that's the story I want to tell. This story was told to me by Rabbi Moshe Naparstuk, and my dear, one of my mashpim here. I have a picture of him here. Here we go, Rabbi Moshe Naparstuk. There he is. I think that's so. There he is. He passed away. There you go. See, nice picture. I guess he passed away how long ago now? I don't know, 5 years ago, something. Anyway, so he told me the story. This is the story like this. Menasha, the renegade Jew. So Menasha, in the Jewish community in Hebron, the Jewish people had a big community in Hebron. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe even visited the community. He visited the community, and shortly thereafter, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe visited Israel for like about 2 weeks because he wanted to go and pray at the graves of the tzaddikim, which that's a story in itself. But anyway, he visited also the community in Hebron. There was a lot of Chabad there also, Slonim. And they got along really good with the Arabs. They were, you know, the ideal, what do they call it? Dukiyum, huh? What do they call it? living together, symbiosis. Anyway, so they lived together. And shortly after the Lubavitcher Rebbe left there, as the Arabs decided one day, hey, let's kill all the Jews. And that's a pretty good idea. So they massacred the Jews. They massacred the Jews. What did they do? They went through the streets, and the Jews were totally unsuspecting. They didn't know anything was going to happen. They went through the streets. There were British soldiers there that let the Arabs do what they wanted to. And they came through the streets with hatchets and with swords and knives and things, and they killed, I don't know how many Jews they killed. They killed like, 80, 90 Jews or something. And they wounded a lot more. And that pretty much destroyed the whole community in Hebron. Okay. Among the Arabs there was one Jew that was a renegade Jew, and his name was Menasha. And Menasha, he, for some reason or other, he separated himself from the Jewish community, and he separated himself from Judaism. And he really got along good with the Arabs, and he would be with them and eat with them and sleep with them, who knows, whatever he did. And he was like one of them. And of course, he didn't keep Shabbos, didn't keep anything, and he would drive through the Jewish community, the Jewish quarter, on Shabbat, on his motorcycle or on his donkey, whatever it was, and he would smoking a cigarette. The chutzpah, just to show them that he's not, that he, how do you say, he laughs at Judaism. He doesn't have any respect for Jews or Judaism or anything. And they would say to him, Menashe, come back to Judaism. He'd say, I'm just as good a Jew as you. You don't need all these stupid commandments and all this stuff of this. And they're living a free life. Anyway, when the Arabs came in and they started killing people, so they killed people in the streets, and then they went to central buildings, communal buildings to kill Jews, and then they started going from house to house looking for Jews. So they came to the house where Menashe was sitting with his friends, his Arab friends. And they opened up the door and they said, are there any Jews here? Are you hiding any Jews? And they said, no. And they looked at Menashe and they said, what about him? And they said, what are you talking about? He's one of us. He's an Arab like us. And they said, okay, good. He's one of you. And they just went on. They went on to you. So this Menashe stood up. The Arabs that he was sitting with said that as soon as these other murderers, they left, Menashe stood up, ran into the street after these people, and he screamed, it's not so, I'm a Jew. And they killed him. And his friend said that it was a Majnun, crazy. He was crazy. What did he do a thing like that for? He chose the winning side. The Jews were getting killed. And because he decided that he was not going to be with them, so he remained in life. So he was, right? The Jews were obviously the losers, and Judaism was the loser. And, now he could continue doing what he did before. That's why he left Judaism. He didn't want all these restrictions and all these, what he thought was false identity or whatever. And suddenly he was willing to die. For what? He says that's the essence of the Jewish soul. Makes absolutely no sense. And that's exactly what happened on Purim. Suddenly something woke up in all these Jews, and they said, to say I'm not a Jew, I can't do it. I can't live for even one moment. And that's the spirit of Purim, and that's the source of happiness of the Jewish people, that they don't care about themselves, even though the results might be disastrous, but nevertheless, it's better to have a moment of truth than to have a long life of lies. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, see you all tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning. Thank you all for coming.